Hello. Yeah, good afternoon and welcome to today's panel, Black Founders. My name is Bruno Moraes. I'm a former entrepreneur, currently the country manager of Wayra UK. Wayra is the open innovation hub of Telefonica. We are present in 10 countries across Europe and Latin America. Diversity and inclusion is very important. It's a very important topic for us, as well as the topic of social mobility, right? For these reasons, we have hubs across several countries. In the UK, we have hubs and programs in several places. The idea is to democratize entrepreneurship and give entrepreneurs access to us wherever they are, right? We also have partnerships with other institutions like Amos Bursary, like Founders for School, to help further promote our message and our work. We thought initially when we thought about this event, we were planning to do an event closed to our network. But then we decided to make it open to the community so that we can welcome here people that wouldn't be previously part of the conversation, right? I would like to thank you, everyone in the audience, all the panelists, especially Margaret, who worked very hard to put this event together today. She will be our moderator this afternoon. So, yeah, over to you, Margaret. Margaret?
Can't hear
Me?
Yeah, now we can.
Mute is off. Mute is off. I just want to say a huge thank you to the panelists who are joining today. Their diversity. We're at a point now where people have had enough and they want to see change. And I'm thankful for leaders like these who are speaking out and actively doing things to promote diversity in the ecosystem. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Jordan, who's one of our Wayra founders. Jordan, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Jordan McRae. I am the founder and CEO of Mobilus Labs. It has, amongst others, Wayra and the London Co-Investment Fund, and John Spindler, who was a great mentor to us through the Greenlight program. We, in a nutshell, we have a hardware-software platform that is changing the way that we do voice communication in extreme environments. So leveraging some IP with a bone conduction headset and cloud-based software, we're looking at how we support frontline workers, construction, factories, and now, as a result of COVID-19, we're also going into the medical applications for assisting PPE-equipped doctors and nurses to respond better to infectious disease environments with frictionless communications. And so happy to be here and happy to participate.
Yeah, mute.
Leave the mute off. So yeah, if Elizabeth, if you can introduce yourself. Awesome. John? Well, thanks for that. So, John, you might as well go on and introduce yourself.
Was that Dele?
John, I think. John, if you can introduce yourself.
Me. Sorry, I didn't quite hear you, Margaret. I'm John Spindler. I'm the CEO of Capital Enterprise. I'm also the co-founder of the London Co-Investment Fund, which invested in Jordan, AI Seed, and I'm also, today here, I suppose, I'm a venture partner on a fund called Luminous Ventures. I'm an advisor to a fund called Ada Ventures. I suppose also in Capital Enterprise, we fund a lot of activity to support early stage startups, particularly our program called One Tech, but we also funded the Space Camp, Seraphine Space Camp, where I met Elizabeth. That's one of our programs.
Awesome. Dele, if you can go on and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dele Akinyemi. I am an associate on the team at MMC Ventures. We are a pre-seed to Series A fund here in London.
I love that. Short and sweet. Abby, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mohamed. I do a couple of things. So I'm a program manager at Tech Nation, where we're scaling the next 22 companies in cybersecurity. And then also I co-founded CGV, where we invest in 100% of founders. We've actively invested in one company so far. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and having this discussion with you all.
Nice. Daisy, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Daisy. I work for Backstage, a seed stage fund based in London. Primarily run networks and communities to find groups of people to support that in its mission. Besides that, I also run our D&I strategy and the investment side, and sort of are responsible for D&I championship within the investment team. Excited to be here. Glad to see action and moving forward in terms of progress.
Thanks for that, Daisy. And Andy, if you can go next, please. Last but not least.
Thanks everyone for attending, and thanks for the panelists for being here. Thanks Margaret and Bruno for setting up. I'm Andy Davis, an angel investor at a venture fund called Atomico, doing really early stage investments, so something from 10 to 50K per company, and collectively as a fund we can do anything from 20 to 750 per company. My focus is predominantly Black founders, do invest in diverse founders as well. Aside from that, ex-director and now venture partner at Backstage Capital, entrepreneur resident, Capital Enterprise, and I very fortunately get to spend time with a lot of Black founders and investors running a few communities with pre-seed Black founders in another community of all the Black VCs in the UK, now forming a group to invest in Black founders separately. And Dele and Daisy are part of the Tenets and VC group of Black VCs. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So guys, we're going to kick off with the questions. As we all know, diversity has not been great when it comes to venture capital and entrepreneurship. It's not been accessible for everyone. The common stat that's quoted is 0.1% of funding goes to Black founders. So this conversation is essentially just kind of diving into, why that is, the actions that we can do to hopefully improve this. And I would love to hear from the founders first, and just hear, what are the challenges that you guys face, and what do you consider to be the hard truths as a Black founder when it comes to raising money? So if we can, Elizabeth, if you can kick us off.
It's on mute, Elizabeth.
You're on mute, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Mm. Thanks for that, Elizabeth, for sharing your point of view. Jordan, I don't know if you can identify with any of the points that Elizabeth raised, that, you know, the dreaded "where are you from" question. Yeah, what are your thoughts, and what is your...
I mean, I can definitely recognize a lot of what Elizabeth said, and I think the, you know, "where are you from" question, I get it, but I also just assume that's because I'm a entrepreneur in the United Kingdom with an American accent, and so I just kind of shrug it off as anyone would ask that question. I don't worry about that aspect too much. I think the things that do concern me a little bit is, and so the challenges I see is, one, there's not enough. So there's not enough investment in Black founders, but there's not enough Black founders. That's like the fundamental issue. There's not enough of them out there, and I think that leads to a lot of the you're brought into a room and you're looking for money and a relationship with and support, are not as used to dealing with a Black founder. So you get this aspect, or at least I run into a situation where I feel like a unicorn, actually, because I'm a very rare species in this ecosystem. And granted, I use that to my advantage, as I should, but it does come with that sort of back effect, which is that I find that some people, perhaps, you get in a situation where then your uniqueness is maybe not appreciated for what it should be appreciated for, right? And I think the other challenge is that, to Elizabeth's point, there's a lot of talk about diversity, and most people that you run into, we all agree that diversity is good, inherently good. I think the conversation that I see less, and that's where you get into sort of this diversity theater, is why is it good? What is it about diversity that is good, and why does it make it investable? Why should it be invested more? Why should we invest in it more? In the same way that diversity within my company, and the way that I should be investing in diversity in my employees, why should VCs be investing in portfolio companies with diversity? And it's not because, I mean, yes, I'm Black by the nature of the color of my skin, but I'm Black by my culture. And it's that conversation I don't think that's being had, which is what are the, because it's a dangerous conversation, which is probably the reason why I'm going to be careful in the comments that I say next, because it's full of cliches and stereotypes and all kinds of other things. But I think it is a question that needs to be had, is that what is it about minorities, people of color, and the cultures that they come from that could potentially make them not just a different type of CEO or a different type of founder, but a better founder? Like, what is it that they've gone through? What is it that they've learned as a result of that culture that makes them a better investment? And at the end of the day, that is the question is being asked. Like, why is this a better investment? Why is this going to be more profitable for me? And you have, regardless of your skin color, you have to be able to answer that question. And I think there is a real strong answer that could be found there. But I don't think that conversation is being had as much. And I think it might be because the entrance into diversity theater, it sort of stops there and it doesn't go any deeper. So you don't have the opportunity to have that conversation. And I think that is part of the challenge, because if we start to have that conversation and get good answers to it, I think that will make it easier for investment within diversity with a more clear sort of reason for why, as opposed to just the fact that diversity is good.
Thanks.
Can I respond?
Yeah,
to
please
that?
do.
Yeah, I see. I think I see where you're coming from, Jordan, in terms of I fundamentally believe that if you take an individual that is marginalized, that is sort of told from the age of whether 5 or so that you have to work 3 times as hard to get about half as far as your counterpart in the dominant group, inevitably you're going to see grit and resilience, probably a huge amount of creativity and all the things that we wrap up in the term hustle. And I think that is exactly what you need to bring to bear to be an entrepreneur. That said, the fact that you are likely to get an even better class of founder or an entrepreneur from disenfranchised people, and in particular Black people, shouldn't be the question that we're asking. You shouldn't have to be better. You have to prove that there's some extra capacity that you have in order to justify getting the same treatment from the system as a whole as you would if your skin color was different, right? The question we should be asking is, why are there systematic barriers that are made up of all of these different interpersonal decisions and choices and norms that mean that I will not get the same opportunities at all as I would have if I changed this one variable about me that I can't change? Why should I have, half as many meetings available to me at all because people are less willing to intro me to somebody else, or I never have those introductions to begin with because I'm, living outside of the spheres of capital. And I didn't have those connections at Oxbridge because I didn't go there because that was never open to me because of the school that I went to. Keeps going like that. So the answer is, if anyone is interested in correcting for this and correcting for the context now in which we are in, don't ask any founder why they are extraordinary enough to justify an exception being made for them to be another exceptional Black founder. Ask yourself how we can rewrite the entire system. What about where you're sourcing from as a fund? What about the diligence strategy that you're taking as a fund? And what about everything in your entire way of working is constituting a barrier to entry for someone for no good reason when they have just as much potential as anybody else, arguably more? That's irrelevant.
No, thanks for that, Daisy. And I think also to your point, Jordan, in terms of diversity and why investors should be backing diverse teams and, founders should have diverse teams. I think there has been research to show that, when there is more diversity, the company is a lot more successful. There are kind of like data points out there that kind of back that theory. So I guess this kind of leads on to my follow-on question in terms of, to what level do VCs have in terms of responsibility to, ensure that they're investing in tomorrow as well, but also taking into account diversity. So I'd love to come to kind of John, Andy and Dele for that.
I go first, okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, we do have responsibility, and there are many reasons why we do. Because, first of all, it has to be said that basically underinvested. There's a great quote that's come out from Black VC in the States from Monique Woodford. It said, Black founders are over-mentored and underinvested. And it's about time they got the investments. And we've got an example there of Elizabeth, etc., just saying, there's a danger of the end outcome at the moment is not good on the Black founders invested. And there's lots of reasons for that, but one of them has to be called out is straight prejudice. And sometimes, I'm a white guy. This is, I reckon sometimes, others there is straight prejudices. There are also other factors, the affinity bias. I invest in things I've invested in before, or I invest in people I already know. And then the Matthew effect. I remember, I'll call them out. I remember actually going to major VCs in Europe and asking, when do you invest in seed? Very rarely. I said, what is the founder, what does a founder have then if you invest at seed? And they said, the number one characteristic is that they're able to raise capital, big capital. So there's this kind of, there's a kind of very tight view that basically that they want to give money to people that already can get money that form into these characteristics. When you can go to point system, did you go to the right school? Have you worked in the C-suite in a scaling startup? Extra 50 points, you've had an exit. and all the rest, etc., which basically means that any newcomer, anyone that's basically trying to break in, is a disadvantage. And if basically black people are having even a bigger disadvantage, which you pointed out, Daisy pointed out, there's an equity problem in society that means, as Jordan says, there's not enough black founders. And that's what needs to be adjusted. Now, I have invested in black founders, but I didn't do it consciously. I just chose them because they were great, like Jordan. But what I should have been looking at is why wasn't I seeing more? And what was the kind of barriers to get them in front of me? Because the truth is as well, and Elizabeth and Jordan are great examples of this, this black founders have greater credentials because they, to get there. I mean, Jordan and Elizabeth, fantastic credentials. You know, kind of like, I mean, my LinkedIn basically tagline is, I'm looking for moderately intelligent people that want to build great companies. When I see black founders and actually female founders as well, I'm not actually getting the moderately intelligent. I'm often getting the super intelligent. You know, and that's basically an issue as well. Do we have to even be even more intelligent when a basically white guy with the right background, with the right connection? And the truth is, yes. What can we do to address it is probably the next question. But I'll leave Andy and Dele to kind of come in there.
Cool. Happy to jump in. I think to your question, Margaret, I think the first point is when the industry, the venture capital industry first started out, and it was truly, a couple of people from a few funds that were participating. I think then it's fine to sort of do things in your own way, but I think we can all say that the industry has progressed to a point now whereby it's influential enough as far as where capital is allocated and where opportunity is allocated, that a moral and social responsibility comes into play in this industry. So yes, in short, there definitely is a responsibility here. And then I think the second point is VCs, I think in general, and maybe even, in fact, definitely even in broader places in our culture and in general British culture and probably in other ones around the world, we sort of like to assume that we are neutral in this problem, but we aren't neutral in this problem. I think we all understand what compounding means when it comes to equities and our investments, that the problems that exist that fair enough were around long before VC are definitely amplified by the way that we choose to run our businesses. And I think if we stop looking at ourselves as neutral and understanding that our actions continue to add to the problems that exist, then we will start to ask the right questions and come to some correct solutions about sort of diversity and what it means to counteract some of the issues that existed before we started working on what we're working on. I think to Daisy's point as well, like what I don't want is this sort of expectation again that, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think I the vast majority of my network is black. I know, some of the most intelligent people I know are black. I don't want there to be an elevated expectation on us to also outperform the market as well. I think it's an unfair expectation. We just want the same opportunity as everyone else. I think, we all see the stories about people that raise several tens of millions for whatever reason to work on X idea or to invest in X kind of company. And those people, despite failures that are sort of often accepted in VC, are never judged too harshly by those. They're allowed to have second chances. They're allowed to go again. In fact, they actually give them more opportunities because, second-time founders that have funded money are more likely to raise and are seen as a more attractive investment opportunity. So I don't want it to be, oh, hey, let's invest in 2 black founders and they both fail, as most founders anyway do. And then as a result, because you've also put an additional weight on their shoulders, you're now saying, all right, we're not going to invest in black founders again because the ones that we had our expectations of didn't pan out the way we wanted them to.
Mostly brilliantly covered by John and Dele. So pipeline. If you, and my investors, my old investors contact me all the time. They're like, hey, I just met a black founder. They send them to me. I then introduce that black founder to many other investors and operators who are helpful. You want to meet black founders. If you want to meet black founders, you will ultimately as investors. But you can go consciously. Someone like myself or anyone on this call and say, anytime you see a black founder, make the introduction, let me take the meeting. And something that a few of investors that who are close to me do, they see black founders and they don't understand them culturally. And some of them have that just like, oh, I don't believe this is big enough. Like, so a business I invested in called Trim, which is like an Uber for haircuts. I remember when they were raising maybe 2.5 years ago or something, like I sent it out to a few investors and someone replied and said, like, oh, how big can this be? Do black people get their hair cut off that often? And it was like, oh, the thing was, it was a cultural thing. And they didn't realize that it all stems from like systemic racism, in that black people just in corporate environments keeping their hair super low because they don't want to be judged in a certain way, and they feel like they can't navigate and they aren't free to even grow their hair out, right? Which I know probably a lot of white people in companies now who are surprised you're in quarantine, like, oh my God, black people have hair, right? John's also got hair on his head, yes, and his face, yes. But the solution to that is just, but if you're investors then contact me and say, oh, can I talk to you about this problem? Can you tell me a bit about the black hair experience? And that's where the solution is, right? And then just trying to understand cultural differences. And that can be where someone's from, how someone speaks, how they dress. Like I don't have a university education. I'm going to do, right? I've got my hair braided. I've never had a job, right? Like there's all these things that on paper don't look great, but you miss out on, right? On the team side of things, you need people on your team who understand as well. So if you're uncomfortable looking externally, look internally. Look at the VCs you have in your team, the Deles and Daisies of the world, and the Margarets of the world, and speak to them about the companies and about the founders, but actually, matter of fact, increase the number of Deles, Daisies, and Margarets on your team, so that the team's diverse. You don't miss out the opportunity. Like I always say, you either adapt or you die. If you don't adapt, you just die. And if you die, like then it will just be a bunch of it'll be like the world that is today, and it'll be like this black world, mixed world that exists, and you will miss out on an opportunity just because you failed to adapt. So just hire more black talent, speak to more people, lean on the black talent you have around you, especially in your teams. And then lastly, the money thing, right? Like I'm just gonna talk solutions because the chitty chat is all great, but then we have to talk solutions. Like literally invest in these founders, even if it means putting a pot aside to make those investments. If it means backing other syndicates and funds, like we're going to get a syndicate fund together. Contact me, give me some money. I'll invest for you. If you don't want to do the work, or you want to do the work as well, right? There's opportunities out there, and it's not about being naive or blind to it. The opportunities that exist, they're real. Just get in contact with, literally contact black people in tech and ask them very explicitly, what can I do with my money? Not what can I do, no office hours. I don't need office space. For some reason, I've already got office space like when I receive your email asking me do I have office space, I'm in my office. Like I don't need office space, right? So contact me and ask me what you can do with your money, and I will put you in the right direction.
It's as simple as that. I think it's just more funding at the end of the day. And I think it's a combination of finding, like putting capital to work with people who are already doing that work on the ground. Angel syndicates like the one Abby runs, syndicates like the one Andy is setting up, like organizations like ImpactX, they're looking for capital, put it there. And then in terms of doing your own internal work, it's about like this notion that at the end of the day is at the heart of like supremacy, which is just that your perspective is default. So if you look at something, you look at a deck and you're saying, how is there a market here? Someone thought there was a market here. Where do you, on what basis, completely dismissed it without looking any further? And if you manage to switch this mindset of you don't know everything about the world, just because you've never seen it doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. Just because you haven't seen it presented this way doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. This humility that is necessary, this questioning of the things that we've taken for granted. This is what a founder looks like. This is what a market opportunity looks like. All of that, frankly, has been based, we now know has been based on all sorts of flawed assumptions. We now say we do not like those assumptions, but we're still operating on, on the further conclusions that are founded from that. So put your money to work and internally, like, bring in other people to help you check yourself and check your perspectives and do the work yourselves. Like apply conscious benefit of the doubt and meet the Black founder, meet the Indian female founder. Make a point to go and look deeper, because probably whatever you thought you knew at a glance is incorrect. Because how would you know, coming from where you're coming from, that there is nothing to be seen there? So I think that's it. Put money to work, meet more founders you don't currently meet, prioritize meeting them. prioritize asking the questions about the market that you don't understand, and just put your money to work. Because if you keep having exceptions of one female Black founder here, one founder here, and they fail, then one, it's also just super unfair to make anybody the ambassador of their whole generation of their old people. You're trying to be a founder and do an extremely stressful thing, and then you're told, well, if you fail, you close the door for everyone who looks like you for what, the next year, 10 years? So put more money to work, invest in more Black founders, and honestly, let's stop talking about it and let's start doing it.
Can I touch on that as well? Again, everyone spoke about this really clearly. Like, we've had this conversation not for starting from last week. It's been a problem for ages. Like, I remembered being at Slush with Daisy, clearly when the Atomico report came out. 39 billion money was invested in Europe. And out of that, literally 0.9% was invested in Black Caribbean people, but not specifically how much was that mix with all male team as well. But the fact is we need to stop having conversations about this. It's two simple things that you need to do. Either you support the vehicles that are currently doing the work on ground, or two, you invest in Black founders, and that's it, simply. Or we can get into this discussion where we're going to have this talk about it and then nothing happens. Since 2015, we have regressed. Not even looking at just Black founders, but even we can't even solve the gender gap. We've invested in less in all female founder team than all male team since 2015. It's already showing that everything that we are trying to do is clearly not working. So what we need to just do is support the people. So with me and my team, we've been running for this for 2 years. Again, all the work that we've been putting into is all part-time. And we've been having over 250 people apply for CDP. And there is a pipeline. Out of the 250 people, over 150 people meet our criteria. And we already are in talks of the diligence stage of a couple of amazing founders that are data-driven, doing amazing stuff. And the fact is currently the VC world are not seeing them. The investment that we did make in Afrocentrics, they failed due to not being able to scale in the market when the Afro hair industry is worth billions. So clearly you need more people within your industry, high level, and not depend on your current bias of the industry, because it's the truth, right? So, and if you're not able to do that within your team, the best thing that I advise you to do is contact people that are doing it. Myself, Andy, there's Impact X that are on ground, that are seeing it. Are we able to pattern match it, the company, and see whether they are investable and they are able to get the returns in X amount of years for your LPs? It's that simple.
No, thanks for that, Abby and Daisy. Dele, you've all said kind of great things. Bruno, if you have anything to add, please.
Yeah, let me just add one point that I think, it's on top, but we as investors, we can actually, in addition to investing in Black founders, and then addressing a point that Jordan mentioned, that sometimes it's not only the problem that the funding is low, but sometimes there are not enough Black founders. We can have a big impact promoting diversity in our portfolios, helping our portfolio companies to be more diverse, measure that, and making sure that that is a topic of the discussion. And this can also, on a longer term, but can also bring more diversity into the ecosystem that will bring more diverse and more Black founders, and it can be a virtual circle.
To place a bet, I'll bet you personally, right, £1,000 right here, that there are more Black entrepreneurs than there are any other race. There's more entrepreneurs in the Black race than any other race. I went to place, I'll bet £10,000 right now. Come to where I live, come to Barking. Every 30% of Black people walk around are entrepreneurs, right? There's Black founders out there. They may not be in Soho, but it's about bringing them to Soho, or you going to where they're from as well, or finding them. If people wouldn't take flights to do great deals, last year, Carter did well in the US, have a bunch of investors come over here to meet the founder of Carter when he was here. We had this like, meeting, and then he went back over there, and a few of them flew over there. People wanted to travel and do miles to do deals. Take a train out east to Barking, go somewhere, right? You really see the black founders everywhere, and there's so many of them. So there isn't a pipeline issue; it's an exposure issue on both ends, right? Again, that's when you come to people like us, and we can solve that quite easily. Send me any black founder you meet. Send me anyone. I'm happy to have a chat and help.
I just wanted to.
I think.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that I think the point you're making, Bruno, is a useful one, but it's really important to decouple it from this notion of like pipeline, because it's not true, and it's a myth that is incredibly unhelpful. And hopefully, the report that the BBB and Extend VC and a few others are working on will help put that to bed once and for all. But putting that to the side, you're right that we also need more Black people in tech in general, more Black employees in tech, and that's a critical thing. And one of the ways that'll happen is obviously, diverse founders will build diverse teams, but that work is important. And for VCs that have platform and get involved in talent, that's a critical thing to do. But let's not kid ourselves on why we're doing that. We're doing that because those companies perform better. Study after study keeps showing that diverse companies, diverse senior leadership and boards perform better. So for the sake of your own portfolio companies, you absolutely should be. We need to be doing what Andy's talking about, which is bridging this gap where you have this huge volume of incredibly talented, high potential founders, and then VCs or institutional capital over here saying, where are they? There's a pipeline problem. So the point is correct, but I think it's a sort of a conflation of two things that in a way that's not particularly helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not one or another. It's just they can complement each other.
I just wanted to make a point on that as well. I was going to say that I'm glad that Andy said what he said, because I got into a little bit of trouble saying something similar. I think one of the recent Wayra events where we were talking about why aren't there enough Black founders, and there is this sort of this difference of. I mean, I think I would participate in Andy's bet that you're going to find that probably there's more Black entrepreneurs. And that's the difference between sort of, are we talking about tech, founders in tech, and also at what stage of maturity in that pipeline are we talking about? So I do still find, and maybe it's just because I'm not looking hard enough, but I do find at the stage that we're at in tech, deep tech, Series A investment, there's not enough people that look like me or Elizabeth around. And I think the reality of that is because the filter has already taken place. So if we're having that conversation about, what do we need to do? It's true that those founders are there, but they're there at a certain stage. They're there at the beginning. They're there where we all start, which is with an idea, pre-seed, and where we start to filter out a lot faster, I think, than everyone else, is not having that network of high net worth individuals around us, or mom and dad, or whoever that can give us that 10,000 pounds to sort of kick things off to the point where we can come and talk to Bruno, or talk to maybe a John at a certain stage, or talk to the people that, depending upon their, stage in that pipeline, are going to be interesting. So they don't even get to see us to some extent because too many people before them said no, or the resources weren't there. And so I think there is this concept within VC of keeping in mind that at least from an entrepreneur's point of view, it feels like a gauntlet every 18 months, and you just see people getting knocked off behind you as the race goes, as you go further and further, regardless of your skin color. But in the very beginning, if there's already a high biased filter, you get the after effects down the end. So I think there is, if we're going to be really practical about where the solutions need to take place, like with many of these issues, they do need to start at the very beginning.
No, I was going to touch on that one little point. I don't think I see personally loads of Black people beyond ideation. I see people hustle and create amazing stuff and bootstrap it to the point where they have validation. And that's where they get trickled down, because what happens is, you're right, Jordan, we don't have support of friends and family. So we are burning out naturally, where you're not supporting those founders that have validated that they can do it with no money, and all they need to do is get the next round of money so they can go to the next level. Hence why there's not many Black people in Series A. The fact is, yeah, we as Black people have hustle. We know the fact that we don't get this whole, you know, privilege of like having the opportunity to, even at ideation, to have extra cash just to play around and experiment and do A/B testing. We have to think outside the box, and still not being able to prove ourselves, because again, as Daisy mentioned, we are marked in some weird like hierarchy, like we need to do this and this and this more than compared to our counterparts. Support them. I can bring you loads of founders at that stage, and all they need is an extra amount of money, like to go to the next level. But yeah, Elizabeth, go over. Sorry. Can I say something? Like, I'm so sorry, like, Elizabeth, that you're feeling this, and especially Jordan. Like, I work with companies that are deep tech, and it's so few of them that are making revenue, but then still able to elevate and go to the next stage, just because of like current bias. And the fact is, yeah, with deep tech, yeah, it takes a long period of time before you can actually prove that you're profitable. So we already are hindered, because when they see you, they want you to make profit, but with everyone knows with deep tech, it takes a long time, and you need like investment to carry on with the research to prove and validate and move forward. So I just don't understand. We are, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's a pretty dicey catch too, right? Because really what you're assessing at that point, and we look at deep tech companies, is the team, it's the founders. And if you, and as soon as you realize that's what's happening, then you can see how dangerous it is if you have a presumption in some people's capacities versus other people's. Because if you're saying, I don't know what's going to happen in 3 years when there's potentially a chance of commercialization, but I trust that this guy, because of these ideas that I have about what he must be capable of based on where he went to school, what he sounds like, etc., can make it. But I don't think, you know, she can make it, or I don't think this Black person can make it. Then means that for that industry or that subsector in particular, we're going to see so little of the potential that we could, which, you know, screws all of us over, right? That doesn't just mean that fewer founders get to reach their potential. That doesn't mean fewer VCs get to make money, but we maybe are slower to reach the therapeutics that we need to for cancer, or we're slower to reach the sustainable like energy sources that we need. We're like what are we doing? How is, like, if you're on the fence about it and you think that there's a solid chance that your bias is talking, then like do the smart thing and push yourself to that point of conviction. Fine, this one fails. It's like a bunch of them are gonna fail anyway. How are you so sure that this guy was gonna be okay, but this woman wasn't? And how are you sure that that's not because of your presumptions about what that person is capable of? You don't know until you see it in action. So I guess let's put money to work. Let's remember that so much of what we think is conviction is just pattern matching bias. And let's correct that, overcorrect bias wherever we can.
No, thanks for that, guys. I think as well, just to be conscious of the people in the room and investors and founders, I really want people to walk away from this with kind of practical and pragmatic actions. So I guess kind of the common issue that I hear is that, yes, they want to, widen access and increase diversity in their pipeline, etc. And, you know, we kind of touched upon the fact that, yes, okay, there definitely is people you can partner with, there's organizations you can look to. But I guess, a tough thing that comes up for them is, okay, we want to increase diversity, but we also don't want to lower the bar. So there's this kind of mindset of, okay, we pipeline, we increase access, but then we may be lowering the bar. What do you guys say to that?
Bollocks.
You have a little on this call who just give you two metrics as to, like, 2 years ago, our business, last year, our business was here, and now it's here. I don't know. Like, I'll point to a company that Abby was invested in, say, oh, when I invested forever, they were doing 2K every month, and the number still doesn't matter. But a year on, doing 20, 30x, that is like, it's up to you. You miss out an opportunity. It's up to you. I don't mind as such, because like back to back funds, we don't want to invest in the founders, because the money's, it's going to happen anyway. It's a question of, like, do you adapt or die, right? And but back then, because they need the capital, and look at the opportunity, you're going to miss out on all these opportunities. I don't know what they need. If it's 10 examples, if it's 20 examples, there's so many of my friends have exited their businesses just in the last year alone, right? And there will be good exits for those funds, especially the pre-seed funds, the early stage funds. Yeah.
But I'll give you some insight though, which is important, because it does go, I think, what the point that Dele made earlier. When you actually are a GP in a fund, you can make decisions and you then retrospectively justify. Anyone else is trying to sell a basic portfolio up the line. I used to run a fund called London Co-Investment Fund. My job was to try and sell people like Jordan to other investors. I'm the man who couldn't sell Nicholas and Revolut to our investors. I was the man that had to give them to Baltimore. Because it's, even when you have an amazing team and an amazing thing, it's hard to sell up, because people, in that case, this is a crazy Russian team. We don't do crazy Russian teams. Biggest fintech we have in Europe. And, you know, and much all my co-investors passing it. 1 million at 4 million pre. And imagine what they could have made. And it's because when you're selling, you end up basically danger of going to the pattern that Daisy said, because you know that someone over there has invested in someone like that one before, and you can basically do the analogy. When you're the GP, you can make the decision. We need more GPs that are basically from a wider, diverse background. And then they can make the decision, because I'm investing in pre-seed and seed pre-data. I do not have product market fit when I invest. I didn't have product market fit when I invest in Jordan. Sometimes Jordan would probably say, I thought I had it, but you didn't really. You know, you probably... But so I'm having to make some form of subjective or basic judgment. And I do think from Elizabeth's point of view, it's easy if you have a strong thesis, like doing deep tech, because there are things you can check. And it's not just about, the team was wonderful, which is the cop out. You do need more people in those positions, or as Andy points, if you're not prepared to give the money to people that are prepared to do that. Give more money to the junior associates, the principals, to make those decisions.
I would also have like a strong pushback on this. The bar, we don't want to lower the bar. The bar is already low from my point of view. It's a silly thing to say in the first place. And I think that, I mean, and it's not to poo-poo on VC investment, whatever, but I think even VCs recognize that in terms of sort of like the sort of success rate of the way that they're making this, it can be improved. There's vast rooms for improvement, and the startups that are getting invested in, you know, there's vast rooms for improvement. So the bar is already low. For what reason, I don't know. And I guess the point to be made is that there are communities and there are people with capacity that you are not tapping into because you're being blocked one way or another by some bias or by some social perspective that is actually preventing you from raising the bar, having a higher standard. You were in a room with a person who looked like you, who said things that made you feel comfortable, and you made a gut instinct decision, an investment decision off of that, but it probably wasn't a good investment decision. And I think actually things like COVID-19, I'm curious to see what the VCs in the room think as well. Like, I've been having a conversation with a lot of my fellow Black entrepreneurs that now is like the moment. Now is the moment to shine, because this thing that we kind of have hinted at in terms of hustle or hunger, for those who are less familiar with those terms, resilience. I think in moments like this, those entrepreneurs that come from cultural backgrounds where hustle and resilience are key are going to shine. And it's going to show the difference between a good, sustainable startup versus some of the silliness that's out there. And I wouldn't be too surprised if that puts a spotlight on untapped resources of founders and startups that have been hustling for a while. And so this new hustle, forced upon all of us, or this new resilience required by all of us, there are going to be those that prosper because they're already accustomed to it, because it's not about fairness or any of these other things. It's just what's necessary to get the job done. And hopefully that will raise the bar by itself. That will immediately raise the bar. So that the whole thing about I would almost be offended by that premise. It's just the wrong premise to start the conversation with.
True. Here.
I should be offended. The bar is random. Like John said, and that you see something, it sounds like what it should be. You cannot sort of support them in so many other ways. And then the next round, you sell them onto someone else who's like, well, I trust this guy, I trust this fund, so I'm going to invest in. And they do this the next thing. And all of that means this huge amount of time, resources, and opportunity for a founder who has potential, doesn't have potential, to actually end up where it could have gotten to. Take all of that and you assume that it was inherently deserved by that one individual over someone else. And it's absurd. You give anyone who's smart, hungry, and has talent and passion for a thing, time, resources to just keep running at it, they'll get there. Not like most of them will. But if you decide to only give that to a certain group of people because you and then tell yourself retrospectively that they deserved it over and above someone else because of some inherent capacity, then you're only gaming yourself and you're only losing out on opportunity.
I second that.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah, for sure.
Elizabeth. Yeah. So sorry, Margaret, the first half of your question was around practical steps that VCs can take. I think between the two options of hiring a more diverse team and investing in more diverse people, I actually think, I mean, just everyone knows it, it's easier to be a VC than it is to be a founder. So that is actually a much easier decision to make and an easier step to take. I don't actually understand why VCs don't have more diverse teams, except that they're just not trying. I think to give investors credit, the investment decision is a tough one. As you mentioned, Jordan, like, I mean, 90% of businesses fail. It's not an easy decision to make regardless, but at least, and that's not excusing that aspect of it, but at least making a hire. Like, I mean, look, I don't have any particularly special background. The vast majority of investors that I see haven't done anything particularly exceptional, especially here in London. It's not, for example, an operator-driven investor culture. It's literally just, you know, you have some credentials on your CV that show that you are sharp and analytical, and you have some sort of, I don't know, you're able to communicate your investment thesis and your view on the world in an interview, and that isn't a hard set of criteria to meet. After that point, it's really just an investor cherry picking who they think they're going to get on with most. And I think that is such an easy problem to solve. I think VCs also need to ask questions of the recruiters they use. It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. A couple of firms tend to dominate the venture recruiting landscape in London. And I think if they aren't bringing you the candidates that you think you should be seeing, you need to hold those people to account. I think it's you know how to hold founders to account at board meetings. Why can't you hold a recruiter to account when they're bringing you candidates? And I think, yeah, I mean that's the end of my point. I think that's actually such an easy thing to do. I think from that point, once you get a more diverse team in, there still will be, honestly, a lag between getting those people in and seeing the investment results you want, because that, like, a certain part of VC is science and a certain part is art and subjectivity. You need that person to understand the science element of it and go through that sort of like apprenticeship program. But then they get to an interesting point whereby they know all of that and they know at least enough of it such that they can apply that to their lens, but also start to challenge some of your existing subjectivity and bias with their own, I guess, context from other spaces that you aren't as privy to. And that's what I'm looking forward to if people are willing to make that change.
Awesome, thanks for that. I think just on your point in terms of getting more decision makers in the room, there's so many great things that we're seeing of recently as well. So Future VC are doing some great work. You know, they're combining internships, masterclasses, included VC as well, led by Notion. So there's a lot of great initiatives that's sprouting up. But I think, you know, we have all these great people that come in through these programs who, as Dele said, have the credentials. But then what we then need to do is ensure that, okay, they are getting the jobs, and, you know, that VCs are not just relying on these recruitment agencies who kind of bring the same type of candidate in, ex-investment banker, etc. So I think it's kind of just widening the pool in terms of, you know, the resources used. So there's recruitment tools like Applied. So they introduce kind of like blind recruitment when you're assessing candidates for the role. So there's so many things out there. I think, you know, a lot of people saying, where should we start? And I guess I kind of want to caveat onto, you know, what you guys are doing, because, you know, you guys are active promoters of diversity and have a number of things that you're doing. So I think it'd be great to share for those who may not know, and also kind of have your points in terms of where you see the gaps and where other maybe funds or founders, etc., can step in to kind of bridge these gaps, because I think that's where, you know, the most effective you know, outcomes will be when all of these organizations link together. I think that's when we'll see kind of a more great outcomes.
Sure. So thanks for the question, I guess. Like at 10x10 VC, again, that's the group of all the black VCs in the UK, which Dele and Daisy are in. Like we're making a conscious effort to support black candidates for these jobs in venture and help them prepare for interviews and get them in the door. A lot of venture funds have reached out and like ask what they can do, or like, hey, actually, and then you see some stuff from us next week that'll go out. We're gonna we're gonna do like lunchtime hangouts for black founders to answer any fundraising questions. but we're going to do like hangouts and workshops for those trying to get into VC who are Black. And we're going to help CV structuring, interview prep. And we had someone just messaged me actually 20 minutes ago, said, thanks so much, just had an interview, you're super prepared. Because one of the tenants in VC that spoke with him yesterday for fund that's similar to the fund that she's at. And we're going to make like super conscious decisions to do this, be very explicit, get people in the door, get people at interviews, help prepare them, and hopefully secure their jobs. Because ultimately, that's the only thing that matters, right? Getting the job in the end. And we're just super results driven.
Awesome, thanks for that, Andy. And I know that you're kind of you're doing way more than that. So I know you've got the Angel Syndicate coming soon. So do you want to speak on that as well? Touch on that.
Sure. So ultimately, it's wherever the problem exists, we're going to try to solve. And there's this capital issue. So with 10x10, we do monthly pitch meetings for Black founders to pitch to active Black angels. And I say all the time, we're in the business of not only getting super active Black angels, but unlocking angels as well. So those with as little as 5 to 10K that they can invest per company, making them angel investors, expose them to this world, and get them actively investing. I'm working on a syndicate fund, which will be up next month, and that's for anyone to back, and that's going to be investing in solely Black founders, and that's for anyone, to any VC, any individual actually at a certain ticket level, at around the 10K mark at minimum, can invest in the fund, and then have ownership and play a part in changing the future of just investment and business in general. And that will go so far, and we're going to be pre-seed, doing anything from 50 to 150 per investment, and we're going to solve that funding gap massively, and we're already doing it. So even right now, formally with the monthly meetings, we've had a few. Like we started last month, and 3 of the angels said they're going to invest in 2 of the companies they saw, right? And then there's a few other conversations happening. We'll see where they land. But this just happens all the time. I send out investor emails every month because I send it. A founder will get invested in, right? But now we're just formalizing the process massively. So again, any Black founders you see, send our way. If you want to invest in Black founders, email me or message me online somewhere, and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Abby, do you want to talk about CGV and the work that you guys do?
So with CGV, uniquely, we come in very early. So we generally help support founders like our family and friends rounds, so like early seed. We've done massively loads of different works. We also introduce loads of the founders to potential other avenues, because we believe in venture capital not just being the only route for investment. So we've helped secure founders with other angels. We have co-invested. We're currently at the pipeline where we are going to be currently invested in the next 2 that will be coming out this year. And we are opening our syndicate too, where people can participate. Generally, ticket sizes are from like 20 to 50K. The great thing about us is we just don't invest in money, but we also provide operational. So with my team, we give advice on technology, because my background is in software engineering. I've built end-to-end digital transformation across the UK for government, councils. And then my team as well comes with marketing, strategy, even legal. So we've helped founders as well previously draft in term sheets, get legals involved as well. We are 100% bootstrapped like ourselves. We have all the core things to work well with the founders. So generally you get us and more. So anyone that wants to get involved, see our work, we have our website online. You can reach out to me. Also outside that, I'm a big advocate on like trying to push the pipeline. So I've over a year, I have taught over 100 women how to code, meaning build actual MVPs. And I've helped loads of women get into their first tech roles. So I'm a big advocate on like helping women in tech as well. So it's all about those kind of criteria. It's like fixing the pipeline, not at ideation, because we partner up like groups like Founder Vines to help you ideate. And then once you've proven kind of your validation, that's where we come in and step in.
Awesome, thanks.
I probably should say a little bit about the programs we do with under One Tech. Well, OneTech, we presently co-fund the amazing YSYS, the fantastic Founder Vine, the wonderful Black Tech, the fantastic Versity VC, and some wonderful people like Andy Iam and Andy Davis. And happy to say that we'll be putting some money in Andy Iam's basic angel school. And all of those are in pipeline, so there's no excuse to any basically investor VC angel to say there's lack of pipeline. And deep tech as well. It's across the board. But I do think there is, coming back to the point I made earlier, we've got to kind of start to walk the talk and put money into basically Black founders. And I can do it at seed. I'm relying on people like Dele and Daisy to do it at the A's and above. But so we're going to do some more. We're basically on Monday, we're going to basically put 50K of our own money into basically into a Black-led team to set up a full-time basic angel syndicate that will solely invest in Black teams in London. And we hope that, because most of these people around here are doing it as sidebars, they're not telling you what their day jobs are because they're so busy as well. And it's we need to get that in. So there is a basically kind of professional, basically preferably full-time, basic angel syndicate that's doing the first checks in some of these kind of founders. And that's just the first step. I'd like to do more. But the final point I want to say, for me being a white guy, looking at how people like Elizabeth and others have had to go through all those, anyone listening to this should be slightly shameful that they've had to be put through that, especially when the talent is there. So hopefully next time you do diversity, you'll have loads of white guys with beards basically saying to you, they've revealed what their number of Black founders or Bain founders are actually invested in. They're basically showing you what their pipeline is, and they can actually walk the talk. Because it's a shame that people like Elizabeth are still finding it so difficult.
Thanks for that, John. Daisy, do you want to speak about what you're working on, Diversity VC too?
Yeah, so I think inevitably we're all working on the same things all together. I think it's the 7th conversation I've had with loose constellation of the same people on this call this week. But working with Andy and Abby and a few others to figure out how Backed can step up and be an LP and put money to work in terms of sort of helping with that pre-seed early check-in in order to get to the point where we can consider you at all as an investment or as an addition to our portfolio. So apart from that, collaborating with Diversity VC, Extend Ventures, the British Business Bank and others to sort of put together a sort of data and research steering group. We're aware that there's so much of this that we know to be true, and yet when we can't point to here is the definitive study, the Rosa report that can put to bed misconceptions and myth, it's so much harder to do this work and so much harder to fight this fight. So we are pulling together, and we're sort of supporting those who've already started the work of pulling together data around sort of companies founded by Black people across the Companies House data, those who eventually secure investment, and sort of showing that massive disparity between what is built, what is funded, and which can only really be explained by structural barriers unless we really do believe there is something inherently wrong or inherently lesser or reduced in capacity about Black people, and also highlighting the kind of exit potential and the sort of successes that the few who do go on to raise end up impacting, again, mirroring what the Kaufman report and others have been able to show in terms of this isn't just doing the right thing because ideally we all believe in that anyway, but it's also about, frankly, cold hard gains and returns. So that data piece, along with sort of looking at how Backed can put LP capital to work, and then internally we're putting together a playbook for sort of VCs at the seed and later stage can look at, so translating that intention into real work. We're going to publicize what we've done in terms of looking at our sourcing pipeline, our sourcing kind of network, and who refers on to us, assessing why is it that our affinity is 70 or 86% white men. That's what we're getting referred. That's probably going to be what our portfolio looks like. Looking at, what sort of mechanisms do we use to assess from decks to first meetings? Are we kind of consciously applying benefit of the doubt and making sure that we meet diverse founders? And then when we are assessing those, are we doing it unilaterally or are we doing it in dialogue so that there's an opportunity for bias to be checked? for someone to say, what do you mean when you say that she wasn't strong? What does strong mean? And drill down into some of those areas of ambiguity that allow bias to thrive. And then continuing all the way on to, if we're going to reject someone, we should make sure that we're a springboard into more opportunities. It's hard enough for those from underestimated backgrounds to get access to networks of capital at all. So it's a bit pointless if we just shut the door and leave it at that, when we could instead say, here are 3 other investors that we tee up and we vouch for you to say that this might have been for us, but there's something worth looking at here. And so that's work that we're doing, sort of a conscious that at each stage of the process, we're improving wherever we can. And so we will publicize that playbook and call on other funds like ourselves to step up and take action, track and record sort of the data to hold themselves accountable to doing these things, so that we never have to have another panel talking about the fact that there is a problem and it's still unchanging. And instead, hopefully we can be talking about tertiary problems to solve once this one has moved further on than where it's been since forever.
For sure. And I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on essentially how the US VC ecosystem have reacted to, the current Black Lives Matter movement. And, we're seeing SoftBank come out with just what seemingly seems, I don't know, but it seemingly seems overnight they've come out with $100 million fund. And then we've got Andreessen Horowitz, who've got a talent and opportunity fund, which I think is, you can make donations. I would love to hear your thoughts on, do you think we can see the London ecosystem move into more, less kind of mentoring and more kind of financial backing? Do you see that happening here, or do you still feel like, Dele, do you have something?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think this issue has been around for a long time, and I'm glad that it's getting focused now. But honestly, nothing's changed. Like, nothing's new. Nothing's happened that's new. Like, what George Floyd has happened many times over. It's this sort of stuff has been happening in the UK for a lot of time, and this issue has existed forever. So the fact that there's now more light shone on it is great, but it doesn't necessarily immediately fill me with hope that much is going to change, if I'm being quite frank with you. I think, like I mentioned earlier, let's see some changes that are easily addressable by some of us as fans, and then I'll start to have some more optimism. But I guess any more capital or resource that goes into this and more thought that goes into this is a positive, as long as it doesn't come with the associated negative of creating a siloed track for somebody else. I think the whole objective of engaging with third-party organizations is for help in the interim. They're training wheels, but training wheels are not meant to stay on forever. The whole point is to get to a point where you can take those off and you actually embrace some of the cultures and the attitudes, or at least you shed some of the cultures and the attitudes that block people out from opportunities in the first place.
Yeah. And the change will come when the more structural changes, even if they take longer, but they are much more sustainable. Like we are discussing, having a more diverse team, for example, it's a sustainable change that will bring change over time, but it will stay, right? It's not just just PR,
Although I would say that a couple of things that would be really good is Google announced another 100 million to back Black GPs, but restricted to the States. Google employs over 5,000 people in London. DeepMind are based in London. There are AI teams here. It wouldn't be hard if they just extended that to the UK and Facebook as well, etc. Another 100 million. See, at least a couple of people in here maybe kind of saying, yeah, give me the money, I'll be a GP, I'll set a fund up. So kind of that's the kind of thing I think we need to kind of have. If someone wants to do something practical, get them to step up.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, for sure. I love that metaphor of training wheels, right? Like this is about VC getting its act together because it's been dropping the ball. This isn't about coming to rescue poor Black founders. This is about like unscrewing up something that has been screwed up for a while. And so you can take your short-term medicine for the symptoms and like put into, you know, specific vehicles, focus vehicles, do whatever it is you got to do. But as long as you remember that at some point you have to have changed, you have to actually sorted out the root of the problem and the structural changes. So hire differently, put money to work, and then go through your diligence process and your sourcing process and unscrew it up. Like this isn't rocket science. It's just about doing it.
We've lost Margaret.
Back.
She's back.
Oh, and for any of the VCs watching and listening, listen, we've got 2 Black founders on this call again. We've got 2 Black founders here. Find out what's happening. Find out when they're raising, right? Like, we've got some funds here as well. Start having the conversations now. Like, put your money where your mouth is. Preempt those rounds. I'm sure they'll let you preempt them at the right value. And yeah, put your money where your mouth is. You've got 2 incredible founders here.
You're both raising, Elizabeth, Jordan. You're both
always raising. Always.
Take the opportunity.
Always good.
Come talk to me anytime. Always.
So I guess you, Elizabeth and Jordan as well, to maybe raising their first round of funding. What advice would you give on how they should navigate raising their first round?
To contradict anything that we've said today, but from a founder to founder particular sort of advice, I would say that being a founder, fundraising is so hard as it is. All the difficulties stack up so much that it almost saturates a lot of the topics that we're talking about. Some of the reasons for why it's even harder for a Black founder. And so I would say it's a shitty advice to have to give, but don't take it personally if you can. It's a weird thing to say, but it's so hard to fundraise. And if you have even more difficulty as a Black founder, and it's going to make it even more difficult, it's going to make it feel even more, it's going to be easier for you to take it personally. And I think one of the fundamental things that you have to do as a founder is understand that at some aspect, it's a game, and it's a game that you have to play. And taking it personally, leaving one meeting, you've heard some of the stuff that Elizabeth has talked about that she's had to go through. And the thing that she's left out is that was like 1 out of 6 meetings that she had in the same day. And so taking that energy and taking that challenge and taking it personally from one meeting and bringing it into the next really is the best advice I can give is don't do that. Each opportunity, you kind of have to come into it with a new energy, a fresh mind, fresh perspective. And that pitch has to be on point. And whatever the last person said shouldn't, as one data point, shouldn't necessarily deter you from the path. And what I find a lot of my colleagues in this, Black or not, they take those things, those no's, those rejections, for whatever reasons they take them personally. And that energy sort of comes with them into the next opportunity. And it creates a spiral effect that can undo the good work that you're really trying to do. And you do have to be, you have to be on point at all times in this process, particularly with fundraising. And so I would say, to whatever extent that you can, understand that at the end of the day, it is a game, and you probably have, as a Black founder, you probably have more challenges than others in that game. But it's still a game, and you have to kind of see it as that, and it's not, and not try not to take it as personally if you're really dedicated to what you're trying to do, and just keep pushing on, keep moving to the next one, because I think you will eventually, you may have to work harder because these problems are not solved yet. But you will eventually find the right people and the right opportunities.
Thanks for that. And I guess for our peers in the room, the VCs and investors, I'll just go to you guys in terms of if you can leave them with one takeaway point in terms of increasing pipeline, you know, putting their money where their mouth is, and just looking beyond mentorship. What would that be? Start with Bruno.
I think it's putting the money. I think that is that's where the real
spend the cash, basically.
I think that's yes. I think that's where that's where the real difference will happen. So I think if you have to pick one, I think that's definitely it. But I think also that as I mentioned before, more structural changes to make sure that it's sustainable. So you build the base, you have a diverse team. It helps you, sustaining this change, and up to a point where this discussion is, as I think Elizabeth said in the beginning, it's not even a point that we have to discuss. Is it a black founder or is just a founder? I think that is the aim where we all want to achieve, right? So I think it takes some very practical measures today, but also some structural changes to make sure that this is sustainable in the future.
Thanks for that, Bruno. Abby, any tips you'd like to share to investors in the room looking to make a change?
I would say support current vehicles that are currently doing it. Again, I'm easy to contact. I have spoke about this several times. We at CGV have a proven model. Again, pipeline is not an issue. So just support us. Put capital where your mouth is if you don't know. If not, it's, again, I can't advise on something that I said so many times. I've been in this industry for a while now, and I've repeated myself way too much. So yeah, just support the vehicles that are out there doing it. There's no point of doing something new. But yeah.
Thanks for that. Has anyone else got anything to add? Daisy or John?
Well, for me, I would just say, if you're a founder, go and see Andy Davis, and possibly definitely Abby, and then Daisy and Dele and me and anyone else, etc. Let's have a see. I think it's been said a little about we need to kind of step up and put the money. So how do they do that? Well, I might call, if you are a VC or an investor, I learned to invest by basically not going to school. I actually had some money from past entrepreneur experience, and I invested as an angel. So why not have a call out to all those GPs to basically kind of join an angel syndicate that will invest in black founders, put 5, 10, 20, 30K. And I would basically have a bet with you. Well, not a betting man like Andy Davis, I don't know if I can go that big, but basically you will make a return. You will basically make money, because in the end, that's what everyone in VC and angel wants to do, is make money. And basically you can do that, and you will probably do that by investing in some of the best talent. And that just happens to be in London, black.
100%. So exactly that. Put your money in your mouth is, give me a call, email me. We're setting something up. We'll invest in the best black founders. We're getting them from pre-seed to seed to Series A. We're doing the work. We'll take the work off your hands. If you don't want to do it, we'll take your money, take the work off your hands. And you'll be involved in these journeys as well. Like I say all the time, it's a pleasure that I get to play a part in these journeys, and you will do the same, and we'll do the same collectively. And we'll go and I will, and as I'm doing, find exceptional black founders who are outperforming so many other founders out there, and will help your fund and you personally outperform as well. Yeah, so email me, message me online, Andy Davis.
Yeah, I don't really have a huge amount to add there. Simply put, one of the best antidotes to pattern matching and to bias is to have counter pictures to the one that you're currently holding up as the standard. If you think success looks like a young white man, then you need to see more people that don't look like that. That means putting capital to work as an LP in vehicles that are focusing on those and being part of the after investment journey, mentorship, getting like overall this mentorship and educational piece we're so obsessed with. It's not like it's a bad thing, it's that it is empty and hollow when we don't have the capital. Put the capital and then come back and layer that on top and be part of those journeys, like Andy's saying. And then in your own organizations, make sure there are sources of deal flow, angels, pre-seed funds and accelerators that will send you diverse founders. And then make sure you meet all of them. Just assume that you're biased to play, skip the deck, just meet them. Spend more time developing a picture of what the alternative looks like, and then realize very quickly it's not an alternative. It's just pointing out there's no such thing as an objective standard, and certainly doesn't have one face, and it isn't white or male. So that's it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And we kind of slightly run over. I want to say a huge thank you again to the panelists that have joined us today. Super interesting conversation. I hope everyone in the audience has been able to take some real takeaways here from this conversation. I mean, like they've said, this is a conversation that we do not want to continue to keep having. There are so many organizations working on this issue, like OneTech, like Foundervine, like YSYS, like 10x10 VC, Diversity VC, Notion with their included VC. So just if you kind of want to make a change and, you know, you can support these guys, you have their names. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Margaret, for organizing this. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Take care. Bye. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.